Riding a Bike by Nicole Leggett. You may wonder what riding a bike has to do with learning. Well, more than you think. Do you remember how you learnt to ride a bike? Think really hard. Can you remember the logistics of it? Did someone teach you, or were you just told how to do it? Did you practice with your parents running behind you, or did you play with your friends and learn from watching them? Was your learning to ride a bike encouraged, praised, nurtured, or rewarded? Did you find it came easy, or did you struggle? I want you to place yourself in this scenario. It's your birthday, and you wake up to find a brand new bike as your present. You are so excited, as are your parents. You all file out onto the lawn, still in your pajamas, to have a go at riding it. Your parents are giving you instructions and advice. Your father is holding on to the back of the bike so you don't fall. You listen to the instructions and have a go. Your parents correcting and offering different ways to attempt to keep your balance, pedal and steer. Later that day, you go to the park with your bike and try for yourself. You watch the other children and you practice. You copy the other kids, make adjustments and talk to them about how to ride a bike. Within a day, you've achieved freedom. You can ride your bike. The above scenario is pretty common to how we learn to ride a bike in our culture and society. Most children have, or have access to, a bike. Now imagine that you live in a community where bikes have been banned for the last 20 years. With the ban lifted, you receive a bike for your birthday. Now, this is the tricky bit. What do you do with it? Your parents can't tell you how to ride a bike. They've never ridden one. There are no children to learn from, as you were the first child to have a bike. Your only option, because you have no access to computers, yes, I know, what town doesn't have a computer and internet access, is to read the instructions that came with the bike. The instructions read, with the bike positioned between your legs, place your right foot on the pedal, press down and put your left foot on the pedal. You are now riding a bike. Would you be able to follow those directions and be a successful bike rider in a day? With the prior knowledge of how to ride a bike, those instructions may seem clear to you. But remember, this child has no prior knowledge of bike riding. Which scenario would you learn to ride a bike in best? One where you have prior knowledge, social and cultural interactions that give you a chance to model other children's skill, and nurturing and encouraging parents? Does the other scenario suit you best? One where there is no prior knowledge, no chance to model behaviour from others, and no involvement from your parents? Now here is the comparison between bike riding and learning. We know about bike riding before we are even old enough to ride one because we have seen other children and adults ride bikes. We live in a society and culture where bike riding is encouraged and parents take an active interest and pride in teaching their children to ride a bike. We have the expectation that children should be able to ride a bike by a certain age. Learning too is something we do before we even attend school. It is encouraged by our family, early childhood settings and society. How much we learn depends on how the information is delivered to us. Like riding a bike, were you rewarded for saying Dad for the first time? Were you punished when you broke the plate or threw food at your sister? Did your parent worry that you couldn't talk by age 2 and all their friends' children could? The society and culture we live in has relevant effects on how we encourage and what expectations we have for our children to learn. In a Western developed country, we expect learning to follow a set pattern and certain rules. We place high value in children learning certain goals, such as learning to read or write. But what if, like the bike riding scenario 2, we lived in a different culture where society valued learning differently to how we perceive it? Their approaches to learning would be different and encompass a different set of learning experiences and values. Just like learning to ride a bike in scenario 2, how children learn would also be different. Like learning to ride a bike, children will be better suited to one theory of riding a bike than another. So too with learning. If we factored into the above two scenarios an age, let's say 2, would either of those scenarios better able the child to ride a bike? Or is the developmental age of the child an issue that would prevent the child from riding a bike? With learning, developmental age can also prevent children from achieving certain outcomes. Most of children's learning occurs in social situations such as the first bike riding scenario, where they can model behaviour, acquire skills and test theories. The child in scenario 2, however, does not have the opportunity to access these skills as they are in isolation from the rest of the bike riding world. This too is represented in learning. A child in isolation will have adopted certain traits, habits and skills that are pertinent to the society they live in. What if learning was as individual as riding a bike? Would each child learn better with more enthusiasm and understanding? Would one teaching model or theory suit one student better than the other? Each and every child is influenced by the way in which society perceives education and learning. Learning occurs every day in many different contexts and situations. Just like riding a bike, learning is not just as easy as giving someone a set of instructions.